Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas with me, Laura Sellier. Coming up in the programme, Boston remembers. A year after a deadly attack on the city marathon, residents recall the day sporting triumph turned to terror. Plus, the cutting edge in technology. Google's internet glasses go on sale to the masses for a limited time. But are people really ready? And a second chance for sex offenders. We travel to Florida, where a church is trying to rehabilitate people shunned by society. But first, it was the deadliest terrorist attack on American soil since 9/11, and this week people in Boston marked 1 year since their city marathon came under attack. 2 homemade bombs went off at the finishing line, killing 3 and leaving dozens wounded. One of the suspects is dead, the other is awaiting trial. Josh Vardy has this report.
A powerful image from the Boston Marathon bomb attacks 1 year ago. The man lying on the ground is 70-year-old Bill Ifrig. He was just completing his 3rd marathon when the first of 2 bombs exploded right next to the finish line. His fall was captured on film. Ifrig can be seen in the center, just meters away from the devastation of the blast.
First of all, I thought, was this part of the ceremony? Is there something going on here I don't know about? And then immediately I started thinking as I was going to the ground, this is some sort of a terrorist thing. The thought just rushed through my head, and at about that time, I'm like, hey, this might be my last run, you know.
Happily, it wasn't, and Bill Ifrig remains a strong marathon runner today. Being so close to the explosion, he was lucky to have not received any serious injuries and was able to join his wife at a hotel where she'd seen everything happen on the television.
There was a knock at the door, and I thought, they're here to tell me that he's in the hospital. And it was him, and he came in, and we started crying because we're so happy to see each other.
3 people died and over 260 were injured in the 2 explosions. An attack allegedly carried out by these 2 brothers of Chechen Muslim origin, Tamerlan and Dzhokhar Sainev. Here photographed and filmed in the crowd minutes before the explosions. Tamerlan was killed during a shootout with police, while his younger brother is currently awaiting trial. They are alleged to have placed 2 bombs at the finish line, one of which exploded right next to 2 brothers. Both lost their right legs.
Initially, I might have blacked out or whatever, but when I came to, I saw that my leg was off, and I obviously wanted to reach for it because I thought they could just sew it back on, and obviously that's not the case.
The brothers say that 1 year on, they find a measure of comfort in the fact that they both received the same injury, meaning they're able to face any future challenges together and on equal terms.
Well, moving now to the Chilean city of Valparaiso, where thousands of homes were destroyed this week by an out-of-control forest fire. Dozens were injured in the blaze and 15 people died after they refused to be evacuated. Well, President Michelle Bachelet has now promised to have the city rebuilt in a way which would protect future communities from such disasters. Ketaban Gorgistani has this report.
Burning embers and smoking hilltops. Valparaiso is still reeling from the devastating wildfires that destroyed parts of the Chilean city. According to authorities, nearly 3,000 homes had burned down and at least a dozen people had died by Tuesday night. The tragedy prompted hundreds of volunteers to help comb through the rubble.
These people need help. We are physically fit enough to remove the wreckage. In one house, for example, there's a very pregnant woman. She needs our help.
It's the poorest people who live on the hilltops and they have nothing left. So when you're at home watching TV and seeing the situation, you can't just sit there. That's useless.
The fires started Saturday outside of the city but quickly spread to the hills overlooking the bay, pushing more than 10,000 people to evacuate. Though fire victims include middle-class families, most are very poor and lived in illegally built wooden houses.
I don't have a home anymore. My house burned down along with all my belongings. Thank God my family's fine. My wife, my daughters, my dogs too. It's all burned. There was nothing we could do. I can't describe it. You had to be there.
With its narrow curving streets and colorful houses built on dozens of hills which form a natural amphitheater, the port city's historical center is a protected UNESCO World Heritage Site, a beautiful but dangerous one. Urban planners have long called for safer structures, wider streets, and restricted constructions. And some believe this tragedy is the perfect opportunity to solve long-standing problems.
We are making all the possible resources available to deal with this tragedy. We'll start first with the relocation of families affected by the fire, and then the next phase will be reconstruction.
Among the reconstruction plans, authorities want to prevent most of the victims from rebuilding in dangerous areas. But it may be too late. Thousands have already returned to the now charred and naked slopes that could be washed away with the next heavy rains.
Now, it's one of the most sought-after products on Earth. The wearable computer screen Google Glass went on sale to consumers for a limited time this week. This $1,500 product has, up until now, only been available to a select few. So, is fingertip-free internet access really the shape of things to come? Well, Catherine Clifford and Mark Thompson investigate.
A product for the future or an invasion of privacy? Even before its release, Google Glass has divided opinion. For a limited time only, the US public can now decide for themselves.
Right now, Google Glass is this really esoteric device that some people have seen, they've heard about it, they haven't had a chance to touch it, they're starting to misunderstand it. I think that's Google's big concern, so they're going to flood the market a little bit.
Google is hoping to gauge customer interest to further hone the device, which for now is still limited in terms of applications. Critics are questioning just how well the price tag of $1,500 per pair will go down in the mainstream market. And there are widespread privacy concerns. A watchdog report on Tuesday laid out the potential threats, emphasizing that anyone could be secretly recorded. Some glass wearers say they have already been attacked in public by people opposed to the product.
This is not just a computer. This is spyware. When you wear these devices, you think you're wearing it, but really Glass is wearing you. Google is wearing you. You're becoming a set of eyes for Google.
Others are seeing the practical potential of the technology. At this hospital in Beirut, Lebanon, Dr. Hassan Abu Sitta is carrying out an operation to repair a young boy's cleft lip. Using Google Glass, he's being advised by a surgeon in New York, 9,000 kilometers away.
It's essential in educating surgeons, and it's essential in supporting those in remote regions. If there's a surgeon working in another country who is difficult to get to, I can support him through the software.
Google is expected to lower the price to $600 by 2016. By then, it's thought the product will be available to the mainstream and selling millions of units.
And finally, from men who sleep with their underage girlfriends to teachers who molest their pupils, sex offenders all have one thing in common. Once convicted, it's unlikely they'll ever be accepted back into society. Well, one church in Florida is working to make sure that these men have somewhere to go, whatever their past behaviour. Martha Pacina and Gail Schwaller have this report.
He is fresh out of jail, but he still has to live with his conviction, like an indelible mark. At the age of 18, Ryan Holland had consensual sex with his 15-year-old girlfriend and was communicating with a 14-year-old girl through email. Those relations resulted in a 15-month jail sentence. In the USA, he is now considered a sex offender. Now released from confinement, he is off to live in a residential area catering exclusively to sex offenders. A pastor created this community. Because local laws usually bar sex offenders from being near places where children gather, the convicts often find they have virtually nowhere to legally call home.
They put a 1,000-yard restriction on where you're supposed to live. You can't live near playgrounds, malls, parks, wherever. So if your house that you lived at was anywhere near that, you can't live there anymore. You have to find a new place to live. And here is good because it's out in the middle of nowhere.
This restriction will remain for life. Around 100 sex offenders live here with their families. The association managing this community for the last 5 years is helping the residents with housing, along with sex therapy, and to find jobs.
Doing good.
What is, who's coming in soon?
Chad Stoffel, the director, says that none of the 300 residents hosted by the center has committed another sex offense. There's a strict screening process. Only 1 in 20 applicants is accepted.
We don't accept serial rapists. We don't accept medically diagnosed pedophiles because it's just too dangerous for the community. Those are the ones that we feel could reoffend. And this village is very important to us, and we need to keep the city of Pahokee safe.
Pahokee, the closest city, is 4 miles away. Most of its citizens don't welcome this sex offender community. At the barber shop, customers expressed a common anxiety.
When do we know they're gonna act again? You know what I'm saying? When you did it, I mean, you can always be able to do it again.
We don't trust these people.
Tonight at the church, fellow offenders and their families celebrate the arrival of Ryan. Chad and the other administrators would like to open a second center in a different community. They see the situation as a nationwide emergency. Because offenders have so few places to live legally, more and more are sleeping on the streets of American cities after leaving jail.
Thought-provoking reports right here on Inside the Americas. Well, thanks for watching this edition. Until next time, goodbye.